Welcome to the Side Ventures series by SoMeDocs. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to an episode of Side Ventures. I'm so excited to have Dr. Michael Foti back with us. We did recently record an episode of SoMeDocs Conversations. And if you're hearing, are you hearing that in the background? It's the fire alarm.
No.
Every noon and in my town, it goes off and it's noon. So
Uh,
of course, it's always when I record a podcast recording. So, okay. So anyway, Dr. Foti, tell us really quickly about you. And we're definitely going to link in the show notes your recent article and the podcast recording that we did together.
yeah, thank you for having me again. I'm happy to be here. So my name's Dr. Michael Foti. I'm an internal medicine physician by training. I'm also full-time faculty at the Toro College of Osteopathic Medicine. And over the last 6 to 8 months, I've become quite a passionate mental health advocate, recently self-publishing a book about my mental health struggles.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's dive right into it because your side venture is clearly writing a book, which, many of us are interested in. We did just have a conference on writers conference for healthcare professionals. So I could tell you there was a lot of interest that's been generated about, writing as a healthcare professional. So let's dive right into it. I do want to pull up the book really quickly, but maybe I'll do that later in the episode for the people that are watching the recording rather than listening to it. So what's the title of your book?
Yeah, so it's titled Grief, A Doctor's Battle with Anxiety and Depression.
Okay. And can you give us just a very quick synopsis of what it's about?
Course. Yeah. So it details very vividly my experiences on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. I was an intern in my internal medicine residency when COVID first arrived. So it details some of the patient experiences that really molded my time then, and then goes into, my journey through mental health and how I was able to overcome it and come into the light, thankfully.
So we talked about some of that in the last recording. So I am familiar with some of it, and you touched some really, touch some touching points. I mean, you made some touching points that were very vulnerable to share. And I think it really touched some of our audience's hearts, as it did mine, because really for somebody to not only experience that, but then to come onto a show and admit it takes a lot of guts. So first of all, kudos on that. Um, do the medical students at your organizations benefit from your opening up with such vulnerability?
Yeah, I can confidently say so. Actually, Toro's where I first spoke and opened up about a lot of these experiences. We have a wellness committee here run by our students, and I thought, well, I think I need to start talking about this. I think not only will it be therapeutic for me, but I think it would also help the students because I had read, a study showing that about 30% of medical students across the country are suffering from anxiety and depression, and about 10% in any time of active suicidal ideation. And those numbers really are staggering and really struck me. And so I said, yes, it'll help me to get this out, but I think it'll also help my students and maybe seeing someone in my position that they can relate to if they're also going through something similar. Because if I suffered in silence, they may be as well. So I spoke here, shared my story, and bless you. And I can say that um, it it did resonate with them very much. I got such positive feedback. Many of my students, one of my students, he came, gave me a big hug, and he and all of them were so grateful. And since then, it's led to several platforms where I've been able to share my story, not only on podcasts but also at other medical schools. And I've had students reach out to me, wanting to just thank me and share that because of hearing my story, they sought the help that they needed. So, yes, to answer your question, it's been really wonderful.
Fantastic. I mean, I don't think there's a person that's listening that would challenge the fact that that's just really cool, plain and simply. I think that having anybody in a position of authority as a teacher, as a mentor, open up to the younger generation and share with them the struggles that they've gone through can only be useful and help. So again, what an amazing thing that you're doing. I'm going to open an incognito window and open up doctorsonsocialmedia.com just to show everybody where they can find your book. So public features, and then directories, beyond exam room, and then books/blogs. And Dr. Foti's book is the first one there because he's the latest one to have a book page built for him. So I'm going to have this up right now because I want to ask you a question about some of the processes of getting your book published. I think a lot of doctors out there are actually curious about that process. Hey, I want to publish a book. How do I go about doing it? So first and foremost, since we're looking at your book, that cover's kind of cool. So first of all, can you explain the cover? And then I'm going to ask you the follow-up question of who put it together for you.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting process. So to kind of talk about more recent, I can go through the whole process, later on. But I worked with a consulting firm, Pamela Aloya, Blossom Consulting. And she's wonderful. She's really great, and she helps. Her main motto is everyone has a story in them, and that want to help get that story out. And she works with a graphic designer, A. Dot Creations, and so it was amazing because, they just asked me, they were like, Michael, just give us a few things you're looking for in the cover. We'll put something together. Usually this takes a couple drafts to get really what you're looking for. And the only things I can think of is, for me, my journey was I was in the darkness and then I came to the light. So I just mentioned to them darkness with some kind of lightness coming through, and a doctor's hand holding an older person's hand, because that was obviously a big part of a lot of the patient experiences. And I got to tell you, he hit it right on the nail on the head, first shot. I didn't even have to go through any more drafts. So it was unbelievable. When I saw that cover, I cried, honestly. When I showed my wife, I was like, I can't believe, first of all, just seeing my name on a book cover, um, but seeing my vision come to life. The graphic designer is unbelievable. So that's kind of how the book cover came to be.
Okay, that makes sense. So it was actually part of the package, the consulting package, or was it an extra aside from that?
It was part of it. So my consultant worked with a graphic designer. So to kind of tell your listeners, so I went through months of what traditionally people go through, is trying to find a literary agent to represent them, to then to have them kind of, you know, pitch your book to different publishers. And after so many no's, I decided to tell myself yes. I said, you know what? If they don't believe in my story, I'm going to believe in my story. So I looked into it. I spoke to some people who did it, and I got great positive recommendations. Hey, you got a story to put out there? Self-publish it. Do it. Put it out there. Because at the end of the day, I just want to get my story out there, and I want, to reach as many people as I can. So that was the route I went. And a wonderful friend and colleague of mine, Kim Downey, put me in touch with Pamela, and it was the best thing I could have done. Pamela was amazing and really walked me through, because I had the book done. It took me about 6 to 8 months to write, and she really just worked with editing it for me, and walking me through the self-publishing process, answering all my questions, had a graphic designer that she worked with, and it was really a seamless process at that point. So the writing was the toughest part, which really it started as something very therapeutic that my psychologist recommended. She said, you should just put this down on paper and just to get it out. And it became a book, and really something passionate for me. And I said, well, if my speaking really resonates with people, I think the more vivid details in a book will even speak more to people. So that was kind of the process.
I've heard so many instances where folks say that writing is cathartic in a sense.
Mhm.
And I can speak to my own experience that writing definitely, it brought out a lot more of my creativity and my passion and my drive for building what I have. So I do appreciate that, outlet of writing. I also can understand the difficulty in getting a traditional publisher to accept your book to traditionally publish, because I published, along with Kim Leibowitz Green, we published a compilation of women physician essays that I thought was going to be fantastic and was. But it took us a long time to land a publisher. The publisher's reactions was that compilations just, they don't sell. Until there was someone that was like, you know what, your stories are interesting and important enough for us to take a chance on. And so they took us on. But I've had my own experience with traditional publisher versus, seeing others self-publish. I wanted to also kind of say to you about that whole being told no, 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 and then telling yourself yes. That is so fantastic to me, because that's literally part of my life struggles, is that so many times I can think of so many instances where I've been told no, and otherwise would have really kind of kept my creativity down. And for those of you that are following SoMeDocs and have seen its progression over the past years, you have no idea to this day how many times I am told no. And a lot of times I've said, you know what? I'm going to do it myself. I mean, with a book, it's one thing you can say, I'm going to self-publish. And I love that we now have that route. But having been told no for so many other reasons, and we're not going to go over them now, maybe I'll do a different podcast episode on my own, but really pushed me to want to build things myself. So for those that are listening out there that are considering self-publishing, can you give us, some pointers about the self-publishing process? Was the consultant someone that did the self-publishing process for you? Did she hold your hand? I mean, what was her role here in your journey?
100%. So Pamela is very experienced in self-publishing. She self-published several books herself. So she very much, held my hand through the whole process, and went over step by step. So there's different avenues you can go. Amazon has a self-publishing program called KDP, as well. Barnes and Nobles as well has that, which I'm on both. And it's actually, once you go through it and have someone help you with it, it's not that bad. But the thing is that what was really helpful is you have to have it formatted to their templates, which Pamela really helped with that, as well as the cover had to go through several editing processes to fit to their sizing. So, that was really helpful. And she was so wonderful and knowledgeable of all of that. So I definitely recommend, if you're going to go the self-publishing route, to work with a consultant like Pamela of Blossom Consulting, because it's not an easy thing to do on your own. I would not have been able to do it on my own, and having someone walk you through it is really helpful.
That's wonderful. I'll actually add her link in the show notes. So if you could get that to me, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right. You decided to go the self-publishing route. You hired a consultant. They had a designer on board. Was your story just about you? Did you bring in any other sources or anything, or was it really just your sort of biography?
It was mostly my memoir, and then at the end, the last chapter is just about the stigma of mental health and medicine, and talking about things that we could do to combat that. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. I'm considering, I put together conferences. I know that you're going to be a speaker in one or even two of them coming up. So I'm thinking of putting together a conference on burnout. I do think sometimes I feel like it maybe is overdone in media, but then I say to myself, well, how can you overdo something that's affecting so many people and that's on the rise? So it sort of makes me feel like that is something that maybe I should put my time into building. So yeah, so look out for that if you are listening. Okay, so you published the book, and when did it come out?
May 10th.
Okay, May 10th. So we're recording this May 21st. So it's about 11 days ago. So it's still fresh. What are you going to say at an acceptance speech if you got an award for the book? Like, who would
Oh
you?
my goodness. Um,
We'll be right back. Hey everyone, Donna Coriel from SoMeDocs. SoMeDocs has just newly released its Side Venture series. It joins a stellar lineup of other fabulous video and podcast series, including Entrepreneurship in Healthcare, SoMeDocs Conversations, and more. In fact, we're working with our members to create more interesting and unique shows to share with you. But if you're interested in side ventures, we do also have a Facebook group that's been built just for doctors that are curious on what else. Check out the Facebook groups that we manage at doctorssocialmedia.com/our-facebook-groups. I'll see you there. Back to our show. What are you going to say at an acceptance speech if you got an award for the book? Like, who would
Oh
you
my
say?
goodness. Um, I mean, first and foremost, my wife, because without her, I wouldn't have got through the journey to even be here. I wouldn't be here today. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wouldn't have survived my mental health without her. She's unbelievable. She holds our family down. She holds me down. Even, I don't talk about it, and I've encouraged her, and I think she's considering it writing her own book because at the same time I was going through all this, literally at the same time she was going through her own infertility battle. She unfortunately suffered 2 miscarriages, and we, went through a big struggle with fertility. But I call her the IVF warrior. She's unbelievable. That IVF brought our 2 children to us, and they're both so beautiful. And she was going through that, all the procedures and medications and all the things just to bring us 2 beautiful children at the same time of me going through my mental health struggles and COVID-19 and losing my mother. So she held it all down in a way that I can't imagine how she did, and I wouldn't have been able to. So I owe all of this to her for sure.
I love that. Brownie points, man. What's her name? We
Yeah,
need to.
that's true. I'll make sure she watches this.
What's
Her
her
name,
name?
Fatima Gonzalez.
So shout out to Fatima. We're going to do a hashtag to Fatima. I just need to get that spelling. So it's going to be in the show notes.
Yeah.
Definite shout out to her. I think, yeah, our partners are um, to thank many times in our successes. I think that having a good partnership is key to our success. At the end of the day, we come home, we're tired, we need somebody that understands, that could be there for us. So amazing. Okay. Um, my next question is that, okay, now that your book is out, you've said your thank yous, uh, marketing. So what are maybe your consultant has given you tips or tricks. What are you counting on for getting the word out on your book?
Yeah, so a big part of it is me. I've been putting it out on social media, both on LinkedIn and my Instagram, so that's been a big part of it. Friends and family as well, helping to spread the word. And then being on wonderful shows like this, which I'm so grateful for. Because unfortunately, I'm not a plastic surgeon or an entrepreneur where I can afford a big marketing campaign. But I'm doing that and just gonna be on, podcasts and shows coming up, and people have been so kind to have me on their shows, and will continue to be doing so over the summer. And I'll continue to promote my book that way.
That's fantastic. I'm sure social media is my jam. It's something that I, lecture on, and have lectured on for years. In fact, I use the analogy of social media platforms being like billboards of the online world. So what you're doing here is absolutely fabulous for getting the word out on your book, because you're really placing yourself on billboards. You're also, in hopping on podcasts like this and having SoMeDocs build you a book page, you're getting content, you're getting someone else to build content, you're leveraging their audience. And again, you've got even new content for those billboards, right? Because at the end of the day, social media platforms are just like billboards, but we have to have really cool content to put out there so that others notice and others see and others, click in and then are enticed to actually click that call to action, which is actually purchasing your book. I really like the fact that you aren't under pressure. You don't have any pressure to sell. Can you speak on that, on the fact that, the positives of self-publishing that you have found to date? I mean, again, one of those benefits to me seems to be that there's no pressure, to perform in some ways.
100%. You don't have someone breathing down your back saying, "Hey, you got to get this out there. You got to, increase sales." You don't have anyone doing that to you. So I think that's great. You control it, and there's more control over that, honestly. And again, I don't have any experience with primary publishing, but from what I hear, you have also more control over your royalties as well. So, once you go through this process, anyone you'll see that, for places like Amazon, they let you decide how much you want to put your book out for, how much you want to make off of it. You really have a lot of control over that. And some people even talk about putting it making less to promote your book, right? So putting out for less, even doing promotional where you're putting it out for very low, like you're controlling the sales if you're putting it out. Hey, this month I'm putting it for this much. So you know what I mean? So you have a lot of control over that kind of market of how you want to put your book out and for how much for. Because at the end of the day, it means more to get it out and more people to buy it in terms of spreading the word than it is about making the money off it. So you have a lot of control over that. And to me, at the end of the day, this is all altruistic. I'm just trying to get my story out there. So it is nice to not have that pressure and at the same time have that control over my book in that respect too.
So Amazon literally lets you set the price of the book?
Yes, as long as it's over their minimum, because obviously
Okay.
they need to make money
Yes.
too. But then after that, yeah, you set the price.
Okay. So you're setting the price, but there is a minimum, obviously, because they also need to, produce the book and actually mail it out, et cetera. Do you also have an option of having like a hardcover versus a soft cover?
Yeah, yeah, you control all of that. Whether the pages are black and white or cream colored, the size of the book, the everything. That's all under your control. How you want it to look is really up to you. Which I think is another aspect of that control over how you want your book out there. No one's telling you how it's supposed to look. You're really deciding that as well.
Do you, do you get to have a sample sent over before you commit, or do you need to commit and then you get the sample?
No, yeah, you can get a proof. Make sure it looks good, in terms of being a physical copy, if you go that route, obviously. And once you approve it, then you just click a button and within 72 hours, it's out there.
And is that process free, meaning, being actually self-publishing on Amazon, is that a free service or is that something that you need to pay to actually be able to like enter the room and self-publish?
No, that's a great thing. It's free. Because at the end of the day, Amazon's making money and so are you. So, yeah, but the fact that they're making it, that's kind of your payment. So yeah, there's no extra payment.
Okay, I love that. I love that from an entrepreneurial perspective where Amazon is concerned. That's so smart because they're making the money. They'd be making the money on the book sales. They're also getting the visibility for, docs that maybe, or not even docs, but authors that want to have it for free, et cetera. I just, from that entrepreneurial perspective, I really love dissecting business models and just figuring out how it is that they are thriving. I mean, Amazon certainly fits that bill. It's so innovative in everything that it does. Okay, so we're going to round out this episode because it's just been so great. And I'm sure that everybody listening will appreciate everything that you have shared with us. Do you have an ask, or is there anything else that you specifically that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, no, I think one thing that I'll always say is, one thing I like about my career, having this doctorate, but really anyone, it doesn't really matter what profession you're in, always know that you can pivot. And what I mean by that is I have my full-time profession, right, being a full-time faculty member, but just like the title of this wonderful series is side ventures, there's always other things you can do. You want to always maintain joy in what you're doing. You want to wake up excited to start your day. And I wake up excited every day to start my day. I come in early, I leave late because I love this job. And I love all the other things that I do besides this job as well. So always know, don't feel like a cog in the wheel. Pivot if you need to pivot. Just make sure you're enjoying it. You're spending so much time doing something. Make sure you're really enjoying it. And buy my book, please. That's my last sentence.
That speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to be putting your book definitely in the show notes. I mean, I'm going
Yes.
to see, again, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a builder. So I'm going to actually see, I thought of it this morning because I knew I was hopping on with you. I said, maybe I'll see if I can kind of add this episode once it's over, like add it to your book page so that when when anybody lands on your book page, I mean, people will be able to get it from the series as well, and we'll share it in our newsletter, of course, as we do every episode. But additionally, it would be so cool to add this into your book page so that people can really kind of get to know the author, behind the work. So I'm
That
going
would
to
be
be
great.
doing that.
Yeah.
It would be great. All right. Amazing. I wanted to ask you something else and it escaped my mind. What was it?
Well, while you think of that, I want to send you a signed copy of my book. So
Oh,
offline, if you could
please.
please send me where I can send it to, I would love
Absolutely.
to.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Okay.
Please. Not, I don't know how much my signature means, but I'd love to send it over.
Because I've had you several times already, so I already I know your story, and I feel like you're going to push, like you're going to make sure that you rise up in the ranks and that people hear your voice. I think that's what's really cool about you, just having read some of your articles and done your podcast a few times. Again, I don't know you well. Obviously, there's a limitation over the virtual network, but I think you're working really hard to make something of yourself that's not already made. I mean, you're a doctor, so you've already accomplished a status in life that is exemplary. I mean, so many, young students and people in the young generation are going to look up to you and are going to listen and say, oh, wow, that's so cool. He's a doctor and he's writing. But now, doing the writing, becoming that board member, it's just really great. So again, I mean, we didn't talk about your mom in this episode, but I know that you talked about her in the other one, and wherever she is certainly proud of what you have become and what you are doing. So I'm sure that others will echo that, of course, that are listening. So congratulations. I cannot think of what else I was going to ask you, but I think that that's what happens when you age, right? You sort of start
No,
getting
no.
things. But I appreciate you hopping on. I cannot wait to get my signed copy. I will share it on social media for sure. And for those of you listening, please remember that this is also in a video format. So you can listen to it in podcast format, but watching it is so much cooler because you can actually see Dr. Foti, and I will have his book up, etc. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening.